the world on notice that Triple C is the next government. There is nothing that will stop us from forming the next government. Yes, challenges are there. ZEC still has to reform. Electoral reforms have to be implemented, and we're to SADC and asking SADC to help us. We've written to SADC, the country, around the reforms that we would want to see instituted and put in place. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, thank you for covering the elections, and thank you for doing a fantastic job. We really appreciate you. We want to thank you for what you did, and we continue to count on you for covering. Thank you for what you did. The journey has begun. The march to 2023 has begun. We are on number 19. We want to get a 2/3 majority. We are on 0 in terms of the actual vote on the presidential election. But we know that the presidential candidate we are going to have 2.6 million. So we count on that 2.6 million going forward, and want to make sure that we have a 6 million mark vote in the next election. Zimbabweans, you can do it. Register to vote. Those who didn't vote in the by-election, we understand you. You said you wanted a general election that will change your lives and that will change your situation and change the government. This is the opportunity. Do it. Register to vote. We want to thank you. God bless you, and we thank God for the journey, because on our own we could not do it. But because God is in it, the citizens are in it, victory is certain, and we'll win Zimbabwe for change in 2023. Thank you.
Thank you. So before the president goes, we're going to take a few questions. As usual, please identify yourself and the media house you come from, and then ask one question so that we can take as many as possible. Thank you. You can just indicate with a show of hands. Yes, Columbus.
Yes, Columbus Mavunga, VOA TV. Mr. Chamisa, what lesson or what lessons do you learn from this by-election going forward into 2024?
Well, ultimately, citizens are the final authority. Citizens are the final court of appeal. This was a correction of the mistakes made by various organs of the state, conniving against us. You know what happened in Parliament, the illegal recalls. You know what happened with other political parties, conniving with ZANU-PF to try and decimate and destroy. Citizens are ultimately the umpires, and they've said enough is enough on the mistakes by Mr. Mnangagwa and the sidekicks. Enough is enough on the mistakes by the courts. And the final court of all courts is the will of the people. And the people have expressed themselves. They've said what we want is the face of change. Citizens know what they want and who they want. And they've made an emphatic statement. Even in the rural areas, forget about those huge figures. ZANU-PF is not capable of being voted for. All those figures are a fiction. And we have to deal with that, because there are also gaps we need to deal with around how we are observing elections, particularly in the countryside. And also the issue of the traditional leaders and their roles in elections. Those are issues we are dealing with, particularly in terms of the countryside. But this whole lie that the countryside belongs to ZANU-PF is a hoax. It's a fallacy. We are very strong in the rural areas. That's why people are intimidated. No majority party intimidates its own supporters. There is no violence that is used by strong people. Weak people resort to violence. That's why ZANU's instrument of choice in dealing with the electorate and citizens is violence, because they are not supported, particularly in the countryside. Look at what they did in Binga. Bicycles or balls. Yes, there's nothing wrong in distributing food, but people are not only carrying stomachs during election time. Remember them all the time. Don't go to them during the by-election. Balls are not only necessary during elections. They need water all the time. That's why we are saying enough is enough. And with all that, all the things they did in St. Mary's and all the constituencies, they did not make it.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
If I can secure SABC News. I want clarity from you, Mr. Chamisa. When you say that you have issues with ZEC and you have engaged ZEC, what form of engagement are you talking about? Because on Friday, when we asked if there were any queries, any complaints from any political players, both the Chief Elections Officer and Commissioner Mangwana said that they did not receive any form of complaint from any political player except from Linda Masarele. So when you say you have engaged them, can you just tell us what form of engagement will you be talking about?
Well, thank you, Effort. In fact, that's part of the evidence of the insincerity of ZEC. You know, we wrote to ZEC several letters around voters. They also responded to us. But in their response, they were not giving any answer that is solid. They were wish-wash, not committing to anything, and we have problems with that. So the fact that they would want to misrepresent even to you as a journalist is a fundamental issue that marks and demonstrates insincerity on their part. ZEC were supposed to pass various tests, one of which is sincerity. Another one is integrity, the honorable conduct of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. We have not seen that. They were supposed to also pass the constitutional test in terms of following the Constitution on all the requirements. Look at the complaints we had around the ballot paper itself, how the pictures appeared and how our logo appeared. You can see that there is tomfoolery. You can see that there is deliberate mischief on the part of ZEC. And these are the issues we have disrupted by the police, as is required by the law. But there hasn't been any good news from ZEC. People have had their names being moved from one constituency to another, and shifted from one polling station to another. It's a big issue that we are going to even raise. They know our complaints. They know that we continue to raise them. And we will continue to raise those because ZEC is our constitutional body. It is our collective referee. We cannot allow them to choose one side or to be biased because they are required by the Constitution and they have to pass that constitutionality test.
Right. Is there a woman? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Remember Mchenje from Newsworks. You've spoken about rigging in the countryside. Do you have particular issues, particular constituencies where this has happened, and particular examples?
Very particular examples, Rutendo, we have Mutasa, Ruimbo, we have Mutasa constituents. There was a by-election there, a ward. And there's evidence to that effect. Our local member of parliament, Sarwaka, even raised it with the police. It's on record. We even went to the police to report what was happening. The whole village being asked to claim that they cannot write, they cannot read, you know. And the chief was there, the local village head was there, looking at people. People know that when they make their choice, they are going to then lose their peace. So we can't have an election. Each election, people lose their lives, people lose their freedom, people lose their peace. That's not the essence of elections. Just one case in point. We have cases of Tasa South, you know, where Regai Tsunga was a candidate. The farming areas there. Almost a big problem. Mwenezi is a case in point. Chivi. But we have an answer to that. And we are coming to a situation where if the police are not willing to help, as they are supposed to do, we will have mechanisms to make sure that citizens in the villages are also protected lawfully and peacefully, so that they are able to exercise their right to vote.
Thank you. Blessed?
I just wanted to find out from you, there are seats that have been regarded as safe for the opposition in urban areas. For instance, Epworth and other council seats that were lost by predominantly the opposition in this case. Are you worried about this urban vote that tilted towards ZANU-PF in this by-election?
I can't speak on behalf of the other opposition political parties, but we are a new kid on the block. We have lost nothing. If anything, we have gained. From zero, we are now 19 members of parliament who are going to paint the parliament yellow. That's not a small achievement. Those in ZANU-PF will tell you that this is not small, including winning in Kwekwe, Mr. Mnangagwa's own backyard. That's where he stays, and we are glad that his neighbors voted for us. That's a big statement. And we want to thank the people of Kwekwe for showing that they do not have confidence in their own neighbor, and they've supported us. That's a big victory for us. Marondera, where we're not allowed to campaign, we did fantastically and phenomenally well. And even in the various wards where people were throwing around, you know, trinkets and trappings, you know, to citizens, we did very well. 77, thereabout, that figure, out of 120. You can't say that this is not a big victory. This is being won by people whom they were dismissing as having no plan. Now, if you have no plan and you are able to win 19 seats against people who have a plan, then you must be a serious player. And we are serious players. As I told you, we are the next government. We have done very well. We swept all the seats that are in Bulawayo, all the seats that are in Masvingo, all the seats in Harare, except of course 1 or 2, where we have just loaned, on account of our magnanimity. Because democracy is that you must also allow others, to feel the fairness of competition, and we are okay with that.
Yes, sir. And then I'll come to you.
Chawanda Bruce from ZBC. Before you ended your initial speech, you mentioned that that's why you seek help from SADC. That's why you need political dialogue. Who do you want to dialogue with?
Well, it's a citizen dialogue, Bruce. It's not necessarily a party-to-party dialogue. It's a citizen dialogue, but there are key parties that have a majority show. And you know that ZANU-PF is one of the key players from a historical perspective, but also from a political reality point of view. And we are the only other party that is big enough to then have that conversation and have a serious course of action for the nation. It takes two to tango. We are saying dialogue is important. Dialogue around electoral conditions and the reforms that we would want to see, so that we do not have another disputed election. We still are not happy with this by-election. So it's magnanimity in victory. We do appreciate that we won, but winning in an unfair election does not make the election free and fair. We still need the election to be free and fair. So even in victory, there has to be dialogue. A pre-election, post-election pact, an agreement on the nature and character of an election that we are going to have, so that we agree on what happens to those who are going to win, what happens to those who are also going to help the winners. Those who kana uri muvhoti unofana kuva nekodzero dzako, kwete kumbunyikidzwa na chief, kumbunyikidzwa na sabhuku, uchiitwa kutinwa semombe iri kuenda kudhidha. Munhu ngave nekodzero yake, kwete kunzi handigoni kunyora, handigoni kuona. Izvo rusunungu waida kuti munhu ave nerusununguko rwokuvhota pano. Chechina inyaya yokuti vhoti panoprindwa kupi nani, panoprindwa kupi nani, vanhu vatinotenda tawirirana here, zviri kufamba sei. Isi manhepfenyuro dzenyika tese ngatibude zvakafanana, kwete kuti kunongobudiswa ZANU-PF, kunongobudiswa bato rimwe chete nayo vamunangagwa, ko vamwe vachamisa vari kupiwa. Ngatione vamunangagwa vakasiyana siyana, mapoka akasiyana siyana. Ndozvatoda kuona izvo, kwete zvatiri kuona zviri kuitika izvo. Toda kuona maresults achibudiswa ipapo pasina unokanga maresults kuti anobuda nezvizukuru kana tozobuda manhamba angowanda wanda kubva mumapurazi, mabhokisi acho asingazikanwi kunzi abva kupi. Izvozvo zvoda kuzvigadziriswa zvinhu zvifambe zvakadi zvakanaka. Chokupedzisira, vanoshandira hurumende, masoja edu, mapurisa edu neveivo zeki, havana kwavakarerekera, ndo refurika, ndo vanoita basa kuti zvinhu zvifambe. Mapato tinogona kutatsanurana, ndo nyaya yedemocracy, ndo nyaya yerusununguko, ndo maissues atoda kuona achigadzirwa. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good.
Thank you.